These are some Dinar Guru updates, starting off with Mark Z via PDK. Question: any Dong news? Mark Z says they are waiting on Iraq as well, still being told around $2.25 for the value. Question: are you still hearing $4 to $6 on the dinar? Mark Z said yes. Samson article quote: the central bank reveals a new denomination of the currency and is working on issuing a digital one. Quote: the governor of the bank, Mustafa Galib, says we are working on a new currency, a category of 20,000 dinars. We will start announcing the new category after completing its requirements. He stressed that there is no intention to reduce or change the exchange rate of the dollar against the Iraqi dinar. Frank 26 Firefly, they showed an economist today being interviewed saying the government can control the currency auctions by making the dinar equal to the dollar or close to it. They say watch for government to make this move in the near future to control the currency auction once they sit. Frank says the reason why economists is talking to you about the dinar going 1-to-1 internationally is because the CBI already told you that. They told you they were going to go 1-to-1 and float. Mark Z via PDK, they dropped a couple more articles about lower denoms, new bills, and digital currency. They are working towards the reforms. Article quote: the central bank reveals a new denomination of the currency and is working on issuing a digital one, unquote. Mark Z says they're actively making moves to support their higher value. Someone from the community said the only reason they would need lower denominations is if they were going to revalue, and Mark Z said exactly. Pimpy says it's going to take an act of Allah himself to come down into Iraq and get these two parties, Framework and Sadras, to agree on something. I just don't see it happening. It's going to be interesting to see what happens to Iraq, but as much as I try not to think of it this way, I can't help but I think it's unavoidable. The civil war is going to break out. RV already says I can't take the 20,000 note and delay article to heart because it runs contrary to what the CBI has been telling the banks for the last several months. Breitling says there's plenty of evidence. You have to understand markets. They're going to add value to their currency. If anyone out there can find an article from the CBI, Ministry of Planning, Ministry of Finance, or somebody in Parliament says, no, we're not going to add value to our currency, I'd like to see that because it does not exist. Be happy, be positive. There's no reason for you to have any fear about this investment. Sandy Ingram article quote: Iraq and European Union joint program in 5 sectors, unquote. Sandy says the European Union confirmed on funding its quest to achieve decentralization in Iraq. European Union Representative Barbara Eicher pointed out Iraq has a huge oil wealth, and on the other hand, the people in all areas are playing catch up for basic service. Decentralization simply means that if there is a substantial sharing of power, authority, financial resources, and political support among federal and local governments. Mountain Goat article quote: the central bank intends to issue a new denomination of the Iraqi currency, unquote. Mountain Goat says this is one of those wow articles. This is good news and this is bad news. Why issue a 20,000 dinar note? It does not make any sense unless they're going to use it in place of the ever popular 25,000 notes. This is a very good sign they are slowly moving to lower denominations, but not fast enough as we want. Why not just follow the economists and go 1-to-1 and save all this money of a new note? Issue the lower denominations instead. There is talk that this new note may not happen under pressure by the IMF to complete the project to delete the zeros instead and issue the lower denominations. Mark Z via PDK, the chatter coming out of Iraq makes it clear what's happening. Quote, Central Bank of Iraq, we are working on issuing a digital currency and deleting zeros from the dinar requires an atmosphere, unquote. Mark Z says their goal is to change that value. Deleting the zeros means the dinar goes up in value, so you no longer need the big bills. 2 years ago, they came out with what they called the I-dinar. This was their pilot program for this, and the I-dinar was to be a gold-backed digital currency. Then you have the polymer notes that represent the digital asset that is backed by gold. They've talked about this at length, and now here we are watching it play out in today's news. This is a big piece of information for us. You can hang your hat on that we are very, very close. For those that were panicking and thinking we're not going until January, if they are telling you January, they're going to go sooner than that. Remember Kuwait, they came out, they said they were not going to revalue for another 3 to 6 months, maybe 6 to 9 months. Then they RV'd that very afternoon. We've seen so much in history that we know what they are doing. They're openly talking about a date. You know they have to do it before the dates they're talking about. Bam, that is something to be excited about. Samson article quote, the central bank reveals a new denomination of the currency and is working on issuing a digital one. Iraq's exit from the European Union's list of high-risk countries gives support to the movement of the economy and the financial and banking sector. It is noteworthy that Iraq owns 7 categories of local currency issued by Central Bank of Iraq, and they are 250 dinars, 500 dinars, 1,000 dinars, 5,000, 10,000, 25,000, and 50,000 dinars. And please note that the new proposed note is a 20,000 denomination. Lastly, Frank 26 article quote, Al-Kazimi expects an increase in Iraq's cash reserve and it will reach $100 billion, unquote. Frank says Kazimi increases cash reserves for the float of the IQD. Another quote, the white paper succeeded in achieving economic reforms. Iraq has achieved the largest and fastest economic growth and has become the first in the Middle East and the 5th in the world, unquote. Frank says that's not at a program rate value, and that is why they're prepared to leave the border as soon as they announce their government. They'll show you a budget, the white papers, an exchange rate, and their economic explosion, in my opinion.